Hello, my name is Tawny Anderson, and this is my report on the micronutrient iron for my Nutrition 200 class. As an introduction to iron, iron is a trace mineral or an essential inorganic substance needed in a small amount in a human diet for normal growth and development, function, and overall health. Iron is present in all living things and helps keep plants and animals alive. It plays a part in the creation of chlorophyll in plants and hemoglobin in animals. Next slide. Iron is a word derived from the Latin word ferrum. Iron has been widely used for over 5,000 years as a crucial building block of steel and is the most abundant of all metals on Earth. Part of the history of iron, at least in nutrition, begins with a Persian physician named Melampus around 4000 BC. He was the first that used iron to improve human health. He treated sailors with iron after bleeding to help them with energy. He was followed later by the father of modern medicine, Hippocrates, in 460 to 377 BC, in Seville in the 16th century, Lemery and Jeffrey in 1713, and Colette in 1897. More recently, Dr. Stephen Curry discovered the presence of iron in hemoglobin molecules in 1840. The recommended daily allowance depends on gender, age, and life stage. Here's the table of the RDA. The highest needs are in periods of growth and development, or of lactation and pregnancy, and during menstruation. So pregnant, lactating, and menstruating females have higher iron needs in general. The upper limits range from 40 to 45 milligrams per day, depending on age. The major functions of iron in the body are in hemoglobin, which is contained in red blood cells, myoglobin, as a cofactor for enzymes that synthesize neurotransmitters, and to help prevent infection. Iron is essential in these areas. In red blood cells, hemoglobin contains iron in its 4 heme compounds that binds to oxygen to transport it to all body tissues and to transport carbon dioxide back to the lungs for removal. Without enough iron-containing hemoglobin, the body cannot deliver sufficient oxygen to the body to meet its needs. This results in weakness, tachycardia, and more. Myoglobin contains iron in its 1 heme compound and transports oxygen from red blood cells to the heart muscle and skeletal cells. Iron also helps in the production of lymphocytes and natural killer cells, and those help prevent infection. Iron's functions in metabolism are basically depending upon its ability to participate in oxidation and reduction reactions. Iron is part of the cytochromes that carry electrons in the electron transport chain, which produces most of the ATP or produced energy in cellular respiration. Iron is required during the citric acid cycle to convert citrate to isocitrate. That's shown by the red arrow in this diagram. And many of iron's functions, the other functions are that it's a component of certain enzymes that play roles in energy metabolism, drug and alcohol transformation, and the excretion of organic compounds. Heme iron and non-heme iron are different forms. Heme iron is a form provided by animal tissues and is a protein-bound form of iron. It's found mostly in hemoglobin and myoglobin forms. This makes it more readily absorbed since it does not require reduction first. About 40% of the iron consumed in meat is heme iron, and the rest is non-heme iron. Non-heme iron is the form of iron in its elemental or inorganic form and is not combined with a heme protein, which is the reason it's less bioavailable. Since it requires reduction before transport into the enterocytes, less is absorbed. It's found in plant sources, supplements, and meat. Therefore, vegans are at risk for deficiency. Absorption rate also varies based on your body's needs. A normal absorption rate would be 14 to 18%. If your iron stores are low, closer to 35 to 40%. And if your ferritin levels are high, only about 5% is absorbed. Some good dietary sources of iron are listed under heme iron and non-heme iron. All iron is absorbed better when taken at the same time as vitamin C or in the same meal, since it helps with the reduction reaction. Lean meat, poultry, and seafood are good sources of heme iron. And non-heme iron, some of the best sources are fortified products and plants and vegetables. I especially like that dark chocolate makes that list. I quite enjoy dark chocolate. Cooking in cast iron can also increase the total amount of iron contained in a meal, since iron can leach from the pan into the foods. There's also something called a meat protein factor, or an MPF, that increases the amount of iron absorbed in non-heme iron when a small amount of meat is cooked with the meal. It helps improve that absorption. So maybe think of adding some meat to your next pot of beans. Iron is less absorbed in the presence of certain compounds in our diets as well. These are seen most often in plant sources. They include tannins, which is found in tea, phytates, which are found in legumes and whole grains, oxalates found in leafy green vegetables, and fiber. These can bind to the iron, which inhibits their absorption. The presence of other minerals can also compete for absorption, since they use a lot of the same channels to be absorbed. So within the cells, the absorption of heme iron, which is ferrous, or Fe2+, passes easily through the brush border. The non-heme iron, which is ferric, Fe3+, is reduced in order to pass through the brush border. It cannot go through without that. Let's see. Ferritin within the enterocyte binds the iron until it's needed. That's its storage form. But since those cells are often sloughed off over a few days, iron is not stored indefinitely, so it's still needed regularly in the diet. Some iron, however, is recycled. It's broken down and harvested from worn out red blood cells by the liver and spleen for reuse. New red blood cells are produced in the bone marrow. Interestingly, if the ferritin storage of iron is needed to be released into the bloodstream, the stored ferrous is oxidized back to ferric for use in the bloodstream, which is the opposite of the absorption, and then it binds to serum transfer and to go throughout the bloodstream. I found that interesting. Deficiency and toxicity. There are many symptoms with both. Iron deficiency anemia is the most widespread nutritional deficiency in the U.S. This is usually more of a problem with absorption than the consumption. I think we eat a lot of iron-containing foods. When levels of iron stored in the body become too low, iron deficiency anemia sets in. Red blood cells become smaller, paler, and contain less hemoglobin. As a result, blood carries less oxygen from the lungs throughout the body. Iron deficient anemia is serious in young children, since the effects are often not reversible and they are linked to development and poor growth. Toxicity can cause death or other serious problems like organ failure or coma, but it's less likely seen when consuming non-heme iron than heme iron, because the absorption is slower and it's lower overall. Most toxicity results from supplements. Currently in the media, there is a video from Nutrition Facts by Michael Greger, MD, and he opens with the image of Iron Man. He believes there's evidence that heme iron consumption increases the risk of cancer, heart disease, and metabolic syndrome. This link is controversial and highly debated, however. Heme iron is only found in animal products, so this is the new favorite argument of vegans. The research methods in all the reference studies I reviewed that he referenced were poor, in my opinion. They used surveys and poor collections and not large groups, and they showed only association, not causation. They did not truly separate between the confounding factors. For example, is the problem the iron, the heme iron itself, or the animal products? Both kinds of iron are found in animal products, so there needs to be a little bit more strength of evidence. I would not change my behavior certainly based upon this source or the review of the studies that he cited, even though I enjoy Iron Man. So one interesting fact in talking about iron is about red blood cells. Erythrocytes are the iron-containing mature red blood cells, and they have an interesting biconcave shape because they don't contain a nucleus, mitochondria, or ribosomes. And this shape increases the surface area to volume ratio that makes it able more easily to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide across the plasma membrane. In a hereditary mutation can cause sickle cell syndrome. And mutations of that hemoglobin gene changes that normal biconcave shape that you see on the left into a sickle shape, which is on the right. I don't know if the sickle is like the thing they use in to execute people. I don't know. But the sickle shape causes problems because it can get stuck in the bloodstream. It can block normal blood flow, so it causes a lot of problems. So that's something that I find very interesting. And in conclusion, iron is essential to energy metabolism and to many other body functions, even though it's a trace mineral, which means we don't need very much. And as with all other nutrients, there's a balance to be found. We need to make sure we're not getting too much or too little. My thoughts on nutrients, including iron, are that they're best consumed directly in our diet that we eat every day. Some conditions or life stages require special attention to our consumption to help ensure adequate iron to avoid iron deficiency anemia. These include pregnancy, developing children, frequent blood donors, excessive bleeding conditions, certain chronic diseases, cancers, and probably other things. In those cases, I think supplements are wonderful and very useful, but they should be used under the supervision of a physician or a dietitian for maximum health benefits. Amazingly, our bodies need and use all the things that Heavenly Father provides on earth to sustain our lives. I would never have thought that iron, which is one of Earth's most abundant metals, could contribute to our health in such a meaningful way, and I've really enjoyed being able to learn about that more. This is my reference page, and I really enjoyed finding all the information on there. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.